come up with some little gem.
Okay, good. I'm recording.
So we were talking about the idea of how to communicate your sexual desires, your fantasies to your partner if you have not done so, and if they are, and if you need to or want to, you've reached. This is what happens many times in relationships. People will go for decades not addressing or not owning, not sharing what they really are about sexually. This is a big problem because when you do that, you often then take it into hiding and sneaking and behind the back. So it's very important to learn how, and it's a great opportunity to learn how to open this channel up with a partner.
Right. But it's not always easy because you don't really always know, or maybe you have a sense of how your partner's going to respond to it. And maybe you already know not so well because they might have read a story about something in the news or heard from a friend about, oh, get a load of this. My best friend's husband has been, blah, 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 whatever. And so it's delicate territory.
Yeah. It's like a cesspool of our darkest shadows, this whole atmosphere around our sexuality and the fear and innuendo and the accusations and the hurt and betrayal. And all of this occurs because I believe in many cases it's a fear of being honest. It's as simple as that. If people would just be honest and say, oh, I like this, I'm looking for this, I'd like to try this. This is and they could come out of hiding, they could be welcomed by their partner, they could be, oh yeah, let's have more of that. This, what a liberation that would be, because that liberation needs to occur, wants to occur, because the sex drive is so powerful that the instinct, the personal yearnings are not going to be. We've tried for thousands of years to suppress it,
to repress them
down, and to shame it and to tell it no. And we are at an era where Eros is emerging in a most fascinating way in this time, that it's unleashed into the world in a way that's unprecedented in the history of civilization, I would call it. And so it's demanding to be heard, to be seen, to be owned, or it's going to wreak havoc like it is doing now with the epidemic of people leading secret sex lives. And then the bust and the fall from grace and the psychological burden of the cover up. I mean, it's a terrible thing just not to be able to say, oh, I like kinky sex, say, it's as simple as that. But on the subject, we kind of, it's a big topic, so we kind of covered some peripheral elements of it, but on the topic of just communicating, how do I communicate if I have some kinky fantasies and they've been with me for decades and I haven't shared them yet with my partner? How do I approach that? So I think
actually, I want to pause you for 1 moment, because I feel like even talking about like, what do we mean by kink? And sometimes it's like, there's a very narrow band of what people consider normal sex, right? It's sort of like, penis and vagina type sex. And, you look into each other's eyes and it's like loving. And, it's like some kind of, I don't know, like the movies or something, the kind of vanilla movies, right? So I think that it doesn't even take much to be considered a little bit different, and so some of us are able to stretch a little more from what we think is, this is okay and that's not okay, but it's a whole range, right? I mean, it really is, I mean, maybe you can speak to that before because we're using that word, but it's sort of, we haven't really defined it fully.
Yeah, well, this is something that's not talked about a lot. There's not a lot of academic or clinical assessments of such things as what sexual fantasies are, also known as kinks, often described as that. But and this era I talked about, of this emergence of Eros, I didn't say the emergence of sex, I said the emergence of Eros. And Eros is a different dimension of sex and sexuality. And this is I have a saying, sex is friction, eros is myth. And so, you
Mm.
know, traditional vanilla sex, to give it a term, uh, we're all about the friction techniques and the spots where, you know, there are sensations to be had and such thing. And this is, if that's where people's sexuality is at, that's perfect for them. But there's many people who are ranging into this realm of eros versus friction sex. And eros consists of this inner dimension of each person that dwells in fantasies of all kinds, from mild to wild, you know, to from sacred to profane. And these are what's coming alive in people when they're having sex. Uh, Either some are very more conscious of, oh, yeah, that's my fantasy. This is the thing I like. I really am into that. That's what I want to do. And for others, it's more unconscious still. They're not even quite aware what's driving their arousal and taking them to orgasm. But even when people are simply thinking they're engaging in friction sex, there becomes a moment in those last minutes before orgasm, on the drive to orgasm, where there is a shift that occurs. And this is where the erotic, the eros is coming alive in the person. They are starting to embody this fantasy character, where, and it might only come up in little sound bites like harder, or fuck me, take me, yes, you know, you bitch, you fuck. I mean, these verbalizations are like a sound bite from one's, what I call the personal erotic myth. And this is the territory in the sexual psyche that is populated by archetypal figures, often in a power exchange sense of dominant and submissive, or predator prey, or, you know, teacher student, and on and on. There's a pantheon of these figures that are out there. And that soundbite, you know, if somebody says harder, or, you know, you bitch, or whatever they're saying, this is can be looked at and drilled down further than somebody could inquire of, well, who's the bitch, and where am I? What am I wearing? What are they saying? What else are they saying? And I mean,
like, what's the narrative that's coming up in that person
what
while they're
led to
experiencing
that
this?
little bit that popped out. It's like the tip of the iceberg, you know. It's just, you notice, oh, who was that? You know, I mean, you might bring that out. So this idea of sexual fantasy and kink and eros are all newer concepts that have just come
So
out
it's
in the
more,
last.
it's more dimensions involved. It's like, but there's something also, even because you talked about sound bites, but isn't it also like I mean, people are almost sometimes just lost in some timeless, you know, nonlinear world. They, you know, maybe I don't want like eyes rolling back in the head, but, you know, there's just this sort of like, they're gone. They're almost in this floating, different kind of spiritual state sometimes too. It can be all kinds of ways that people can be more than just two, you know, humans interacting in a, you know, animal sense, right?
It's a complex mixture of all of those things. The deeper you go into your own personal erotic myth and own sexuality, the more transcendent states of experience that you're likely to have. And that is, in a way, it is leaving the body. So in that state where you're lost, that's one view, but then who is present then is another view.
Right.
So, you know, you can understand it from the frame of, here's your everyday self, and oh, where did I go? And I don't know where I was. And and that's
like
a
the ego
fantastic
or something,
feeling.
or the
It's
the
it's the
thinking person.
embodiment of a totally different persona. Your sexual persona is has a different body language, different tone of voice, different way it looks at you, different way it sends the signal, the message of desire. You know, and this is an embodiment. This is, you have to be embodied to be able to do that. And our sexual personas are distinct personas from our everyday self. That's what I said. They have different tone of voice, body language, etc. And when we are in that state, in that last minute before orgasm, this is where our sedate proper self is normally trying to, oh, I don't want to show that I'm like a total, creature here, but we can't help ourselves. The sex instinct is so powerful that when we get close to orgasm, it's like the sexual persona kind of says, okay, move over, I'm taking it from here.
Right,
and then
right,
it's, then it's the drive to get off. I mean, that power of that instinctual yearning to orgasm, is there's a different force that's taken over from our kind of polite everyday selves in that moment. We become this other thing while quote unquote, we have left the building. This other part now is here and in charge and knows exactly what to do and how to do it. And so this is the opportunity then, is that part of you. There are epic stories to be played out, and scenes and props and attire and dialogue. It's like an infinite package of possibility that you can open to and allow that interplay with a consensual negotiated scene with a partner to unfold. You can learn, wow, what's so this idea of sex is friction, eros is myth. Another point of that is like the difference is friction sex is like getting off on the first exit of a 1,000-mile journey. You've gotten off, yeah, but great, and that's powerful. That's great, but you've missed the whole journey. The other 999 miles of what was possible, or what experience and pleasure you might be opening to, and authenticity and empowerment. It's a very powerful. This is the most potent energy I think humans have access to, and it's connected to our very soul, our very being. I mean, as you said, anyone who's orgasmed with a partner and that spent, exhausted bliss at the end, knows it has a sense of, whoa, this is, it erases everything else for a moment. You can just be in that state of intimacy and pleasure and bonded and closeness and personal, just release of all anxiety, fear, past, future. You're just boom, right there.
Present and alive and connected, and yeah.
But the question of, so how do if I'm at 0.0 though, if I have not done this yet, and I'm like been thinking about it, wanting to, and I'm in a relationship and we've never discussed, we haven't opened to this, how do I go forward from there? It's one simple way is, it's just about being honest and vulnerable and taking a risk. It might be simple. So an approach might be, I was reading this article, I saw this podcast the other day, and they were talking about how people don't communicate much about their sexuality and some of the problems that leads to. And I was realizing I've never really talked to you about my sexuality, and I'm very curious about yours. It'd be fascinating to learn more. I'd love to know more. It could be very exciting, and I feel very feel timid about even speaking this. It's such a big leap, but I realized that I think I just felt like I needed to do this. I want to do this. You're my partner, and I really want to expand what could be possible for us sexually. So this is inviting your partner in. It's not, it's you reflecting on, there's talk in the world about this subject and how it can enhance couples, depth of relation, so you can really bring it in a positive, like this is a very positive thing I was reading about when couples share their experience. So and just let her know I'm terrified to say this even, but I'm taking a risk, and be curious about your partner's sexuality, inviting their participation. Let them know it's something you want to share with them, as an enhancement to the relationship. So that's a simple approach. And as I said, there's a risk there though.
Yeah.
And this is just the nature of being in relationships where we've never discussed our sexuality, that you could be in an erotic mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that your partner might say, oh, that sounds disgusting, or I could never, you know, that, how could you want to do that? I mean, if you could, you're
Well, wait a
risking,
second.
you're going
Before
to get
you're,
that response.
yeah, but you're even saying, I mean, what I'm liking what you're saying is that you're basically, it's kind of like a preamble. You're saying, you know, I would love to talk about this. Here's my intention. I kind of want to share this. I think we could, you know, really expand our connection and our, you know, lovemaking and our bonding and pleasure together. And so, are you open to this? Are you open to this conversation? So you're, before you even share anything, you don't, I mean, you don't have too much skin in the game yet. You haven't revealed too much yet. And I think that can be, and maybe it's like, well, I don't know, let me think about that. Or I'm not sure, I haven't really thought about it. Can I get back to you? You know, it doesn't have to kind of, it can just be like, you know, the toe in the water to start with, just to get the dialogue going. And I think it's always good to do the preamble, like, even is this a good time? It's like, well, actually, I got this big presentation tomorrow at work. No, let's talk about it this weekend, you know, or something, whatever, to make sure that, like, you know, kind of set it up for success, so to speak, that this conversation could happen when both people are ready for it.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue question. You know, at the end of where I described opening up and getting vulnerable is asking, are you open to discussing? That's the perfect place to put it back in their court and give them the opportunity, as you said, in that moment, maybe not, right? But yes, I'd love to, let's get a time, you know, and it's just good communication
Right. Yeah.
to
And there might
make
even be
them, to
some,
get the best outcome possible, you know, just
right.
if you take a little time to consider all the things we just discussed for your own context, and how to bring that up with the offer to find out their interest, you know, and such.
And there
For
could be
many
a
people,
response. I'm imagining right away could be like, oh, you're not happy with our, you know, sex life. And what do you mean? Is it not working well? You know, like an immediate, like, you know, oh, is something that's not doing enough or not enough for you? So that even that could be something to address if you notice some hesitation, and that, you know, this is not because I'm not happy with our relation. You know, you kind of want to, what do you want to say, like, ease their concern about it, that this is actually to expand, not to see it as like less than or not enough or something, which, you know, is just helps someone be more excited about the conversation, right?
well, this is another point that you're bringing up there that I call pace. And so if you're in this 0 point and you're wanting to move forward, the pace is very important, and the stages to go through that, because again, you have to follow your own sense of your partner. You know, some people this could be very easy for, and they kind of, you've already have kind of a good intimacy, and this is just going to expand it, and they're probably going to be, ooh, that sounds exciting. And then because we're in such a sex negative culture, and so many of us have been wounded and shamed and traumatized and embedded horrific messages about what sexuality is about or what it leads to, that your partner could react as you so precisely reacted of, I'm not good enough, what's with, you know, that kind of, if you meet a defensive response like that, you know, it is important to, this is what pace I'm talking about, you know, take a breath first for yourself, take a breath right there, you know, just let that be heard, and let it wash over you, not, you know. So when we're wounded, and this is what a big problem in relationships are, is what I call shadow meeting shadow, or wound meeting wound. You know, I try to be vulnerable and say, oh, I'm interested in learning more about our sexuality, and I'm met with, oh, I'm not gonna, that kind of response, then if I'm a wounded soul, as we all are, I mean, the instinct, our shadowy response is, well, yeah, maybe you're not. And like,
Right.
my own defensiveness can get
Right. We
triggered
get
there.
reactive, like we trigger each other, right? In that.
Yeah. And then it
Yeah.
spins off into the epic, uh-oh, what the fuck happened,
Right.
kind of
Right.
moment. But if in that moment, this is about learning to hold space for your partner, and because we are also triggered by sexuality, often this is, if you get that response, I would just say, sweetheart, I hear you. I mean, it's my want is to learn more about you and us,
Mm.
and how we can, open up and address, well, I'm wounded around my sexuality. I know it's very, like I said, it's very hard for me to speak about this even, but I'm trying to make a stretch. But yeah, I feel often
Mm.
inadequate, or I'm not good enough as well. And so, I mean, I know that's not true, and I want to take this opportunity to heal. This is what is powerful about opening to your sexuality. It's both an empowering and a healing journey. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to, if you're starting to open up more to your desire and your partner's desires, it is going to bring up all the things that we have left unresolved. We haven't addressed,
Mm-hmm.
that are still operating and affecting us in huge ways. So,
Right. Our
uh,
insecurities or our shame or whatever, or
yeah,
yeah, past experiences where somebody, it's like I wasn't good enough in some way, whatever
yeah.
residual, hurts that we have, right?
And if you're in a place with a partner that, you kind of have a long way to go, versus some people who are maybe, oh, this would be fun. Yeah, let's talk about it. Maybe the place to start is not to engage, but let's take some classes. Let's get educated. Let's look
Right, right.
for some information that we both find
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and just start to learn more about this, and
Mm-hmm.
how do people move forward down this path once they've
Right,
decided
right.
to, and take that journey together then. Uh and if you, like I said, if you feel like you're very, this is way new, this is, exciting, but you don't so sure about stuff, uh it's best to get educated first, because if you start
Right,
off with
right.
some
Because then you have the
clumsy,
context
awkward,
of what.
ineffective kind of efforts in this exciting idea, you can, like, really, whoa, that was too scary, that's too much, I don't think I can do this, it's, too awkward, so you have some preliminary work to do. In other words, maybe it would be
Mm-hmm.
best before you actually step into it, so it's your own judgment to decide, well, no, I'm ready, we can go tonight, or
Mm-hmm.
wow, this is very interesting, and yeah, I'd like to learn more about this, and I'd like to ponder myself, what do I really desire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. Yeah. And build the context for what, many experts are talk about this. It's not like just, some taboo thing. It's actually quite getting
There is a
more
lot of information, a lot of resources out there that people
right.
can, this is kind of like not the shadow sex ed, but I mean this sex ed is available. It's not sanctioned
Mm-hmm.
by the government, and we're unfortunately aren't institutionalized sex education, but uh, sex education is available for if you want to pursue it online.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, thankfully many experts or people who have taken the journey, or well considered how to approach this. So I think there's a lot of good information you can begin your journey with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it could be something like you said, either separately or together, something a couple could do together, or let's take some time on our own. How about, you check out what you can find online and do some learning, and I'll do some, and then we'll come together and see, wow, what did you find? And, kind of compare notes and things, just to kind of, it's always easier sometimes to hear from, some expert or somebody who's written a book or whatever. Oh, really? Oh, there are a lot of people that are doing this kind of thing. It's like, it's not just that, my partner's off the deep end, or, whatever that person might think initially. It's helpful to get other experiences to kind of fold in rather than just, hear it fresh, maybe from your own partner and maybe be a little taken aback or something.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, again, we can edit this, but how do we I think maybe we covered it, do you think, for this topic?
Yeah, I think so.
Or was there more that you thought of to go into?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, well, I had so the role play idea, a wife talking to her, I'm just using the gender real simple because anyway, a wife talking to her husband about his porn use, a husband bringing it up with his wife about his porn use, how to diffuse the energy, emotion around this, which we kind of talked about, talking about kink in your relationship. And then I guess also like not being able to get erections like you used to or something. And also not getting turned on as easily by your partner as you used to. And I think that's a big one where I think some people find that like, wow, with porn, I can really get turned on, but with my partner, not so much. And that can be really like, well, what, you're not attracted to me anymore? Like that can really create some insecurity in a partner. And so that's another thing to touch on.
Yeah,
we could.
I think those are great questions, and I can almost see doing these little mini episodes, as we kind of talked about last week, about just a few minute, 10-minute, 2 to 10 minute kind of things of, and I could hear like at least a couple of those were like, just here's the question for today.
Right, exactly. And, yeah.
Just see if we can nail that, some kind of a encouraging
like a tight answer on, yeah, exactly.
Those, issues that are going to come up on your journey. And this might even be like a series of under a title, maybe there's 10 episodes coming out to your partner or opening up your relationship to deeper sexual engagement, or and the problems and pitfalls of along the way.
Right.
So yeah, those are great questions. I think challenging even to answer, because they're so complex.
Yeah,
and there's so many. This is the thing about this topic is, if you're yearning to get deeper into your own sexuality and you've hidden so much, and you come out, you're at this after 2 decades in a relationship, you're in some very challenging and difficult territory to now from this point move forward. And you might find you are totally incompatible with your partner. Your partner has no interest, they don't want you to have an interest. They are,
right.
You'll be faced with the challenge of, is this the right relationship? Can I be in this relationship? The outcome is possible that you'll find out you're an impossible relationship to be in for yourself at this point, despite all the 2 decades that you've actually gone together.
Right.
And then in the middle, you might be, I'm totally incompatible or barely incompatible with this person.
Well, it's still always a choice,
this,
right?
This, that, and I want to hold the relationship together. Then you have to, if you have 2 loving partners, you can figure out how can I end, and you both want to respect each other's sexuality.
Right. Like, where's the common denominator that you can meet and create the best outcome? And then how might you each have other experiences in whatever way that would complete the picture for each of you? And because even just, there's a whole range of people being from asexual to, very sexual. I don't know what the hypersexual, I don't know if that's a term used these days, but it's like some people just, I'm done. Like, I don't really have any interest in sex anymore. And it's sort of like, wow. And so the other partner's like, well, I'm not ready to be celibate yet. And then what, so there's a whole range of discrepancy, so to speak. Right.
So let's keep those on a topical journey. We'll go on. Maybe if you could maybe arrange them and what's some sort of sensible order, if we're thinking about the whole topic of, you know, we're doing, and then this is the order that these questions, and maybe it doesn't matter, they're all going to be important questions, but that'd be one thing. So yeah, I think that's kind of, I feel like I said, up until today and starting last week, I was starting to realize I'm not really sure how to do this, you know, or how can this be interesting every episode, you know, versus
Right,
now.
right.
And I think homing in on making it kind of question based, because
Yeah, like
this is what I
specific,
ultimately
more.
see it is as like an advice podcast, you know. It's coming into that place of an advice column or a call-in, you know, kind of thing where the point is to answer people's questions, you know, the direct
Right,
questions that they have.
right.
So I think these are the questions you're coming up with are excellent and relevant and pretty much going to be on the journey of most people, you know, coming from the repressed state to the
Right,
liberated
right.
state.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even just giving people some, like, you know, you're not alone, and, you know, compassion for both sides is always kind of the starting place of any kind of a challenge that a couple is having. And I think that it's sort of like, that's always the first answer to come up with, as well as some ideas and things to consider. And, you know, you're not alone, and some statistics about, you know, I mean, I'd love to see some, I just talking with someone recently at a workshop, and, you know, he was sharing that he had prostate surgery. His prostate was removed, and he no longer can get erections, and yet he still has a very satisfying sex life without being able to get an erection. And I think that's probably for many men, I'm imagining that would just be like, you know, the end of the world. I don't know, you know, for many men.
No, it is.
And yet,
if you can't get, I mean, men are in the mindset, if I can't get a hard on, how can I can't satisfy her? She's not going to want me. I don't even want to try to have sex.
I might as well pack it up and go home. Yeah, right, right, exactly. And then you don't even want to try. You don't even want to bring it up to a partner. And it's just like, you know, what a tragedy, really, because I mean, this man was telling me he's having a really great sexual experiences with his partner. And so many things are possible here, as opposed to just, all right, I guess that chapter of my life is done, you know. And that's unfortunate because, and that's a choice for some people too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either, of course. You know, it's all about choice, I think.
Well, this brings me back to the meme of sex is friction, Eros is myth. When you are unable to perform in the friction sex tradition, you know, that we've all are expected to have that expectation of him. And that's what we've narrowed sex down to, is that friction interaction as how we get satisfied or can satisfy another. And this is where Eros comes in. You're opening up this whole range of sexual experience and rapture and ecstasy and pleasure that has nothing to do with an erect cock to it. I mean, you know, having a big erection and having sex is fantastic, but it's not the only path. And especially as, you know, I mean, I'm 72 now, and I'm not like the walking hard on I was in my 40s and 50s, you know. But that's one. So I started getting erectile dysfunction issues in my 50s, early 50s. And being involved as a kink oriented man has been fantastic, because it was almost, I had, I think, one partner who was like, wow, I need to have the hard on going on, you know. And others, I mean, I have a kind of I can maintain an erection with stimulation, but it on its own, it doesn't go that way. So having that issue, I was able to really open up to you know, non friction sex, you know. If I was beginning my sexual journey, which I did around 50, into being open and truthful and honest about who I was. If I was like the fully erect guy I had been prior to that, my sexual journeys would have lasted like 20 minutes or 30 minutes at max, maybe. But because I was not focusing on the friction sex, now from then on, I was having 3 or 4 hour epic journeys with my partner into incredible things. So it really allowed me to slow down my own pace and really pay attention to what the territory was offering, and what the possibilities were, and the erotic excitement that was available, and pleasure with a partner, and deepening my own partner's pleasure along the way. So this is something, especially for elders, seniors, people heading into that stage where that's kind of an inevitability, especially for men, that they can learn and realize that, oh, there's still tremendous epic ecstasies available once you're not once you realize it's not necessary to have an erection to be able to pleasure yourself or your partner.
Yeah, and I think some people are like, what? Like really don't understand, and which is unfortunate, because, how would we know unless we've been there before, or we've, it's talked about or written about or whatever. And so obviously there's information now, and there probably always has been, but our culture is so heavily, this is how men have to be, right? So it's unfortunate, but yeah, there's lots of joy and pleasure to be experienced. So that's great news.
I was getting a little conflicted there with, oh, this is a good topic, and but this is another topic, and at the same time we kind of ran down the path,
we went into it. Yeah. And you might not want to share this personally. I don't know if you want to share,
so but let's come back to that topic of whatever we call it, about
bringing up
non-erectile sex.
Right.
And get clear on these other questions, so that when we come back and we know, okay, today's what we're going to focus on, this one question, and just try to get a good clip on it. And it was great though there's so much, there's clearly a lot of meaty material, I think, that these questions can open up, that we can really bring out. So that I think this is I'm feeling really good about this as a direction, kind of.
Okay, right. And making sure it's not just, it's very more specific, so people can be like, oh, I want to learn about that. What are they going to say about this? As opposed to like us just having a dialogue about lots of different things, roaming all over the place with that's, it can be interesting too, but less of a, what can I search for and what can I get an answer to type thing. So
so then the question was, the first part of our conversation, I think we were capturing an episode of the question of
how to bring up this topic. This the preamble, so to speak.
If that was a good take, I was wondering, do we need to put a wrap on it? So a wrap could be, we just, wherever we ended up that part before we I think I stopped and said, oh, I'm thinking about this or that. I could see that could end with just a screenshot, not a screenshot, a text frame. If you want to, or maybe we recap the 5 key points in that thing. You know, if you want to introduce this to your partner,
right.
number one, da-da, number two, da-da, you know, and kind of finish it up like that. And maybe that's a something that every episode could have and that kind of thing, like the
right, a little
action
recap
item recap or something. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to try to do that now, or do you want to record that bit
that's
now?
Why I guess I thought about the text idea recap, because then we don't need that. I'm wondering if I can remember, what did we cover, or how did at this point?
How did you say it? Yeah.
Track, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I mean, I'm kind of remembering it's about, you know, and one of the things I read too was just like, you know, you got to be in a position that you are ready to open it up. You have to feel some, you know, own comfort with where you're at, or some, at least, not fully like, you know, but you don't want to be feeling embarrassed or shame in that moment. You need to have some confidence that this is, you know, this is something okay with me, right? That's kind of like the zero step that you got to be, because I think that would be probably better to get some support before you even bring anything up. That if you are still in a shame, you know, tangle about it, then it's not the time to bring it up. It's not going to probably go as well. So it's almost like you have to have some eagerness and willingness, and then telling about it, like you said, and having some context about, you know, I read something, or what do you think of this? And I would love to, you know, share more about what I've been learning about myself, and I'd love to know more about you. And so I think we could, I'd really enjoy having this conversation. You know, are you open to having,
let's refine this, what we covered, and come back to it and do it, because I think you start, that was another good point, and one of my own as well, but I didn't think of it at the time, of how do you come out to your partner a little more? It starts with the self, you know, begin with yourself first, you know, get clear about what do you want, you know, and what you don't want, what your boundaries would be, you know, practice under explaining these things, and what's in your way of, oh God, I'm so terrified of this, that, you know, and come get in touch. So I think that's a good one to add in, you know, of how do you do it. Starts with the self, then the thing I brought in about how to, you know, hey, I saw an article, or, you know, how to begin the conversation. But I think putting number one, start with the self before you begin the conversation, you know, get present. Now, it doesn't need to you're doing the life work needed to go somewhere, but just get a sense of, you know, what you do want, you know, so you can, when she says, oh, I'd love to hear it, you know, then you want to be ready to be able to say, well, what it is. And again, you can put it in the context. I mean, this is another thing that stops people is, oh, I feel so stupid. I don't know how to do this. I don't know anything about that. I can't, it's, you know, that is important to think of. This will be an exploration. It's okay to explore and learn and fuck up and oops, didn't do that. But hey, that's why we're exploring, so we can learn. You know, I mean, I think that's another thing, is to take the pressure off. Oh, I have to be an expert, or I'm supposed to know these things. No, come in as a curious being, you know, just and excited with explore. This will be open fun to explore. But here, I don't want to. I have to get going soon. You probably do too. But I want to. I think we're doing good on learning. I'm learning more, I think, about how we can do this in a
how we might
way. Package it or structure. You know, what's the model that we're putting the content into, that we kind of keep a consistent model framework for these episodes to come in. And I almost could see, I don't know why, but this idea of these bullet points at the end almost could be just a screen with the text, but a voiceover. So here's our 5 points
Mm-hmm.
today of what's going to
Yeah,
be on it. It doesn't even need to be a picture of you or I, but just
right. You
the
can just
voice
have,
and
yeah,
those things that might make it more impactful or I don't know why I think it's an interesting idea, but
yeah, yeah. Oh, and if it's on YouTube, you can also put in the description, right? There can be a description of the key
learn the
points that
5
we covered.
things or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Do you want to pick that up then? And like I said, I'm not going to be able to meet in a week, but in 2
Yeah.
weeks, you want to pick this one up and
Yeah. Let's try it. Take a shot at it. If you could during that time, give me the exact question that we're going to
okay.
be
Okay. Yeah.
talking on, and then some of the point, let's edit back and forth the key points, that
Mm-hmm.
we got from
Okay.
our verbal draft here, and see if we can hit those in a
Okay.
recording.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
Good. You getting a little R&R next week?
I'm actually going to Atlanta with my daughter. She's starting college at Georgia Tech. So she's got orientation and we're going to hang out a couple days there together. So,
Wow.
yeah, I'm looking
Where
forward
does
to
she
that.
live
So.
now?
She lives with her dad in Concord, Massachusetts. Obviously I don't want this being used anywhere, right?
We'll stop
Maybe
the
turn off the
recording.
recording. Thanks. Yeah. Should have thought of that. Anyway. Yeah.